It's been 2 weeks since my previous dev diary, and I've done loads, so I'm going to fly through it super quick. First up is asset management. When projects are deployed to served, we can't make use of local folder storage because there's multiple copies of an application and the file system is independent for each. So I've built a plugin which allows integration with a custom asset management platform which is built specifically for served. It's pretty much zero config if you're only using it in the context of served, and it only needs a couple of parameters adding if you're using it locally. It also includes a built-in image optimization service, which again is zero config. So as you can see here, these images are being replaced with an optimized URL, which is applying the craft transform off server, so it's not using any CPU resources at all. Next up is PHP error logging. When the craft framework is bootstrapping, it has the option to intercept errors and send them to the PHP errors.log file on the local file system. And whether or not this is done is determined by a PHP constant, which you can set in the index.php file in your web folder for your craft project. The difficulty I had here is that the index.php file is project specific. However, I need to be able to turn this functionality off so that I can intercept those PHP error logs and send them to the served custom log solution so that they show up in the dashboard. And because I can't go around just editing people's index.php files willy-nilly, I had to find a method of injecting the correct settings for this. Luckily, I am already tweaking some config settings in all the craft projects that run on the served platform. So as part of those changes, I now override Craft's override for setting all PHP errors to go to the file system instead of the default PHP error handling solution. I've also been making some updates to the served dashboard in general, the first set of which are related to the logs viewer. I've added the ability to go backwards and forwards in time, so you can either go backwards from a live tail or you can go backwards and forwards inside a specific search, and then you can always jump back to a live tail at any point as well. I'll be adding a few more features to this logs viewer over time. You'll be able to filter by specific services inside your project and also filter by specific timeframes rather than arbitrarily going backwards and forwards in time. I've also added tracking of hits against your project so you can see how much of your quota you've used and also the amount of assets in your asset storage. Finally, a small update is just being able to update the name of a project in line on any of the individual project pages. Last but not least, I've been setting up a lot more monitoring for the clusters using Prometheus and Grafana for actually displaying all those stats. It allows me to keep an eye on the CPU and memory inside the cluster at both a cluster level and also for individual projects, so I can drill down into a specific project and see how much of its allocated CPU and memory is being used at any given time. I've also set up alerting for all of these things, so if during the beta period things start using more resources than I expect them to, I can adjust accordingly. So that's all for now. I might do a deeper dive video into the assets management because some of the authentication things that are in there are quite interesting. I've got some beta testers being onboarded next week, so hopefully I'll have a lot more to report in the next Dev Journal.